Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to toy-polloi. Now today we're going to take a look at restoring a vintage TIE Fighter Interceptor. As you can see here, I have the remains of the body part of a TIE Interceptor. This arrived at toy-polloi in a very kind donation from Tristan Howden, and I thought it was too good to just sort of throw away or take to pieces for parts. I thought actually it could be saved. As you can see here, we have the main body section. It has the battery cover, and the battery compartment looks in reasonable condition. It also has the top canopy and the little seat section inside, but it's missing the front cover and missing the bit where the light fits on. You can see the wiring is broken, so it is fairly damaged, but it looks like it can be fixed. And I've sort of having a quick look in the end. You can see one of the hooks is still in place there, and it looks like the one on this side is broken. So after a little bit of hunting around online, I've managed to find the missing piece to go where the light should go there, which is quite good. And I've also managed to buy a spare cockpit glass. So that's the start of all the pieces that I will need for this restoration. And then another little bit of eBay searching, and I have one wing. It's a shame I didn't manage to get a pair of wings, but I will while I'm doing this restoration, I'll try and hunt down one more wing to complete this thing. So the first thing to do really is to take this apart and see what's wrong with it and if it can be fixed. So as with all of these old Star Wars toys, it's just a case of unscrewing it and trying to keep a track of where every bit goes. So with the TIE Fighters, it's just a load of screws on the bottom, and then just sort of keeping track of where where the wiring goes and where it should go, and then I should be able to work out how to fix this. It also gives me an opportunity to clean this. It's fairly dirty, so once it's in pieces I'll give it a good clean as well, and then we try and put it back together and get the electronics working. So let's get this unscrewed. So now I've removed all of the screws, we can start to take this apart and see what it looks like inside. This is actually the first time I've ever worked on a TIE Fighter. I've never fixed one before, so this is all going to be new to me. So let's take that out. Okay, it looks fairly straightforward. There's a few little wires in there and a few bits for the spring neck mechanism. So we can see here the two spring mechanisms. This one on the left I know is broken. As you can see, the little hook on the end is missing, but everything else seems fairly good. If we take this one on the right hand side, there you can see that's the hook that is snapped off the other one. Might be able to make something to replace that, but we'll see. It may be a case of trying to find a complete replacement for that section. And then we have the standard setup for all Kenner vehicles. It's a motor that whirs around and rubs on a bit of plastic. There's a light there. If I unhook that, I should be able to take these bits out like so. And it appears that it should all work, apart from that one broken wire there. Let's just take this out of it. There's one broken wire there. I reckon if I can solder that all back together, then this ship should work. So that's not too bad a problem. So let's go ahead and get this all cleaned up, and then I can solder this and see if we can get the electronic parts working. Because the motor is fairly well held in there, I think I'm not going to immerse this completely in water to wash. I'm actually just going to gently wash this with a toothbrush so that I don't have to put all of these bits under the water and start to cause corrosion on them. So it makes it a little bit more fiddly to clean, but it saves me a lot of sort of work in the future. I don't want to just detach this motor just for the sake of it, although it would actually be fairly easy to remove as it's only held on with a small cable tie. But in this instance I think just washing with a toothbrush and soapy water will do the job quite nicely. So now, having given everything a good clean, pretty much all the parts have come back looking really nice, apart from this front section where the little laser light goes. As you can see, there's quite some nasty sort of marks on there. It looks like this may have been stuck on at one point with old sticky tape. I don't think it's glue, it does look like sticky tape. So what I'm going to do is use some lighter fluid. I have here just a normal can of lighter fluid, and put a little bit on the end of a Q-tip, like so, and then just rub that onto sort of the gluey marks, and hopefully they should remove quite nicely. The good thing with lighter fluid is it just evaporates quite quickly, so it's very easy to see if it's worked. So if I just rub that, you can see there that it actually has removed the sticky mark. So it looks like it's just the residue left from sticky tape. So I'm going to go ahead now and clean the rest of this, and then we can start trying to get the electrics working. So here we have the electrics part of the ship, and as I showed you when I first took it apart, one of the wires has snapped off the LED at the front there, and I hadn't tried the motor. I've sort of rolled it a few times. Normally with these motors, if you just give them a little roll, they do tend to work. So I think what we can do with this is we can try, before I start soldering everything back together, we can try and see if it works. So I'm just going to put some batteries in the battery compartment. Luckily this one is quite clean. If yours isn't very clean, you can clean it using white vinegar. I've shown you that before in some other videos, and that's the best way of cleaning the contacts. If I just put those batteries in there and press the button, oh actually that's good, the motor does work and makes the awful supposed laser sound that all of these vehicles make. That's pretty nasty. So I should be able to check the light as well. So I'm just going to hold these two wires together. It's only low voltage stuff, so it's not going to hurt me if it's does work. Oh, and I don't know if you can see that there. The light does work, so that's all good news actually. It's just a broken wire on this one, so I've just got to solder it together. So soldering this back together should be quite a simple job, but actually having had a look at the construction of the front part of the TIE Fighter, it's a little bit more awkward rather than anything else, because actually the two wires have to go either side. If you can see here, this is the lower section of the TIE Fighter. The wires have to go around this sort of dividing bit of plastic here, because that is where the little LED sits. So you actually have to thread the wires either side of that and then solder the lamp back together on the front. So it's a little bit fiddly, so I brought out my little tool clipper here just so I can hold everything in place, and I can then solder it, and hopefully nothing else will sort of move in the background. So it's just a little bit fiddly, but it's still quite a straightforward job to do. So before I start sort of taking this apart and putting it all back together, I'm going to check this one more time. So hopefully I can just put the batteries back in here in the background while everything is still held in my tool clipper, and test it that the motor works and the light lights up. So let's try that. I don't know if you can see that there, if I put my finger. But yeah, it's all working, so that's good. So the soldering has worked, so I can now start reconstructing this TIE Fighter body. So the first thing we need to do is to glue back in place the sort of laser light holder section. I can see on the original that there's some glue marks along the top here and a little bit along this sort of back line here. So I'm going to use some Evo Stick Series glue. This doesn't go off particularly quickly, but does do a very firm fix. So it goes off mildly in about sort of 6 to 10 minutes, and over 24 hours will harden fully. So it gives you a little bit of leeway if you want to move stuff around or if things don't seem to sit quite right. So I'm just going to drop a few little drops of this glue onto here. It doesn't need a great deal because really this isn't holding anything in particularly firmly. It just needs to sort of stay loosely in place. So just a few little blobs of that along where the original amounts of glue were should do the job quite nicely. So that's that. And as I said, because it takes a few minutes to set, it does give you some time to sort of reposition things if they're not quite right. So now I've got to slot this so that the light goes into the hole. It's going to be a little bit fiddly like so, and then I can just hold that in place and we'll let it set. If you want to hold the sort of bit of plastic in place while the glue fully sets, then I suggest just using some large rubber bands like I have here that you can just wrap around the whole top section, and it holds everything in place. So I can then leave that and it will just dry over 24 hours. If you want to use a quicker glue you can, but I quite like this Evo Stick stuff. It seems to glue quite nicely, and it has a slightly rubberized finish to the glue, so it does have a little bit of give to it, so it seems to work quite well. Okay, so now everything is glued and we're ready to put it back together. Unfortunately, when I took this apart, I did show you that one of the wing clip mechanisms is broken. Now, there's no actual way to fix these. It's such a little sort of fiddly bit that once it's broken, it's broken. So really all I can do for this is to hunt out a replacement one. So for the moment, I'm going to put this ship back together without a replacement because I haven't yet sourced one, but it's the sort of thing that I will pick up in time. So and as I only have one wing currently as well, I'm not too worried about one of them being broken, so I'm just going to fix it back as best I can for now. So putting this thing back together is a little bit fiddly, like a lot of these ships are. First thing to do is to put the cockpit seat back in, because this actually hooks onto these two prongs on the back. So what you have to do is drop the seat in place, and then if I turn it over, make sure that these two little tabs are hooked behind those two prongs. Just otherwise, if you don't do that, the seat comes out and it's not actually supposed to. Then we can go ahead and start putting the wing mechanisms back together. And these come in 3 pieces. So you have a cylinder like this, which you drop the spring into. The little hook piece goes in like so. So you've got a little hole there, and it goes through. And then this pops into the ship wing sort of mechanisms. You see here, and there's 2 little resting tabs where these 2 pegs on either side fit. So you just have to do that. And you leave that, don't move it, do the other side, and then we can start screwing everything together. So if I put the other one together, as you can see here, actually I put them on the wrong side. I wanted the broken one on the other side. That's annoying. Let's just swap that over like so. So drop that one in place there. And we'll do the same for the other side, and then we can screw the ship back together. So here everything is placed, and I can now just slot this back on, and then you've got to remember to put the cockpit in as well, the cockpit screen. So this goes around, there are 2 tabs on either side, so you've got to make sure that these are lined up. Actually, there are 2 tabs on either side. Oh no, there's a definite top and bottom. So which way? There's a little peg there, that goes towards the top. I can see that now. That should just slot in place like so, and that lines up with the top. So that goes together. I can now screw that together. So previously I mentioned that I couldn't work out a way how to repair these clips that hold the wings in place, and while waiting to get extra bits to finish off this TIE Interceptor, I've actually sat down and worked out a way that seems to work pretty well. So I'm going to show you now how to go about it. So here we have a TIE Interceptor wing clip, and as you can see, the end little clip bit has snapped off, and this seems to snap off in exactly the same spot on every TIE fighter I've ever taken apart. So it seems to be that's the weak point. And so what we need to do is recreate the little sort of hook section that the wing clips into. So here you can see the one that I've fixed, and I've remade the hook. So this seems to work quite nicely. So let's see how that's done. What you're going to need is obviously a broken wing clip. If you don't have this, you can't do it. And we're going to use my favourite bits of fixing material, which is Lego. So again, I have here a Lego lance. These are very cheap. You can buy quite a few of these for under sort of £2 on eBay. I've got quite a few of these in my toolbox because it's the one thing I generally use a lot of for fixing. So what we're going to do is, using this little sort of the hand guard part of the lance, we're going to use that to make the hook to go in place on this clip. So first thing to do is actually to modify this broken clip. So you're going to need something to be able to cut the plastic. These are plastic cutters that I picked up. They're very good, they're very sharp, and you can be quite gentle with them. So first up, we've actually got to make a slight modification to this clip. What you want to do is cut an angle down to the lowest point where the little clip is broken off, because that's actually where the clip should start. The clip sort of starts about there. So what we've got to do is, I'm going to gently trim this off, just one little snippet at a time. It's best to do little bits rather than one massive amount, and I can just slowly trim this down. If you can see on my original, it's quite a steep angle I've got, so I'm just going to slowly trim this down. It takes a little bit of practice, and you feel like you're sort of making things worse, but this is what you need to do. So I'm just going to trim. So that looks about right. I'm actually just going to use the sharp edge of this just to slightly trim off a few little bits here. Right, so now you can see we've got a much sharper angle, and that's where we're going to attach this bit of Lego. So let's go ahead and we'll modify this bit of Lego, and then we can go ahead and glue it in place. So here we have the lance, and I've already just trimmed off the little handle bit that the character would hold, and once that's done, you then need to slightly flatten one edge of this, and it's easier to do this while everything is still in quite large pieces. It gives you something to hold, so I just can trim this down using a knife just to try and flatten it a little bit, and then I'll do it this way as well. You just want a slight flat surface because this is where you're going to glue it onto here, so just make sure that's quite flat. That's looking pretty good. Like so. Now we can start modifying the rest of it. So if I hold this in place, you can see that the back end of the lance is too tall, so we need to chop off this sort of top section and make it so it lines up with the top line of the top part of the hook there. So again, just going to do this by eye. Get my little nippers here, trim this down. Like so. So if I now hold this in place, that's still slightly too long, so it's always better to leave things slightly sort of more than you need, and you've got a little bit of leeway. Like so. So that looks like it's perfect, lines up perfectly. So now we can modify this little shield part to become the hook. So first up, we can cut off this end. We don't need that anymore, that's no longer needed, so let's just chop that off, like so. And now you have to do this all the right way around. So we've got the angled bit, we know that that's the top, and we can now start trimming off the edge, if you see here, of either side of the shield part, like so. Turn that round, we'll do the other side. So you can see it's now looks more like a hammer. If I hold that in place, you can see it's starting to look like a hook. So we can also now take off this top part. There's one back side of the hammer because that's no longer needed as well, like so. So we now end up with a shape like that. It's like a tiny little hammer, but it is a hook, and that can be glued on there like that. So let's go ahead and get that bit ready. So before I go ahead and glue this, I'm actually going to do a few little bits of scoring just with a knife onto both parts of the plastic, just so the glue has something extra to sort of stick into, because obviously this hook takes quite a lot of force, so you want the glue to hold extra firmly. So I'm just going to score this as well, just so that the surface is a bit rough, like so. And now I'm going to use I'm using some serious glue. This is Evo Stick serious glue. This sets roughly in about 6 minutes, takes about 2 hours to dry, a little bit more, and 24 hours to dry fully. But because you've got a sort of 6-minute window at the start, it means you can rearrange the position of the hook so you get it in the right place. So I'm just going to put some glue liberally down the side of this, like so, and then very carefully position this on. Don't worry if the glue sort of gets a bit away, you can trim it away later on once it's fully gone off. So about like that. And then we're going to leave that to dry for 24 hours. So here we are 24 hours later, and as you can see the hook bit is now glued on. It looks pretty good actually, it's quite firm. I just want to do one final thing to make this slightly stronger than just a glue joint, because all of the force is going to be pulling on this hook. That's the wing pulling out of the socket. So what I want to do is just give one little extra bit of sort of well, just extra bit of strength to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a small file. I've got some needle nose fires here that I've used before, and I'm just going to gently score 2 grooves, one on either side. I'm going to do one sort of just slightly down the underside of the original arm, like so. Just a small, as you can see, that's just a small groove. And I'm going to do the same on the other side of the new clip bit that I put in. So I'm just going to do like so. As you can see there, I've now got 2 grooves either side, and onto that I've got some very fine, this is beading wire. It's quite thin stuff but incredibly strong. I'm just going to cut a small piece of that off. So with a pair of scissors, and I'm going to wrap this around the 2 bits of plastic and tie it very tight using a pair of pliers, just so everything is pulled together as tightly as possible. So as you can see there, I've wrapped that around pretty tight. And pull this to one side and then twist it, and then I'm going to use a pair of pliers, which I have here, to twist that extra tight so that every part of that plastic is being pulled together, and hopefully that should give it enough strength that anything that pulls on that, it's then also being pulled the other way, and should hold in place quite nicely. So I'm just going to do one more turn on that just to make sure everything is properly tight, and now I'm going to trim off that wire and we can put the ship back together. So here is the fun thing, everything is now held in place pretty firmly. That little bit of wire certainly give it an extra, feels like it's quite strong now. You can pull on that quite well, which is what you want because the wing is going to be pulling on that. So now that's all done. It's not massively neat, but it certainly doesn't look too bad, and this will be hidden inside the ship. So let's go ahead and we'll put the ship together and see how it all works. And so here is the finished ship. As you can see, everything holds together quite nicely. The electronics will work. If I open this ship up, you can see we've got a pilot in there just sitting ready for action. And if I show you, this wing on this side is the one that was unbroken. So if I press the button, you can see the wing fires off quite nicely, and that clips back in place. Now, actually, clipping it back in place is still quite awkward. I always remember these being quite awkward. You can see why they end up broken. Let's just clip that in. There we go, that clips in place. And the wing that I've fixed on this side, it does fire out. It's a little bit sort of fiddly to do. The hook is certainly a lot more firm than the original one was, but as you can see, you can detach the wings. And if I clip that back in place, it does clip and hold in place. I think I need to do a slight bit of fine tuning just on the hook part of the mechanism. It's just a little bit too hooky, but overall it does work very nicely. So as you can see here, we have one pretty much complete Imperial TIE Interceptor, and it does look pretty good compared to what it started with, which was just a broken up shell. I still could do with finding a decent left wing. The one that I've managed to get isn't particularly great. There's quite a few stress marks on it, so I'm going to keep hunting to see if I can find a better left wing. If you have one, please get in touch, that'd be much appreciated. But overall, this is now quite a nice ship, and it's going to go on display here at toy-polloi. So I hope that's been of interest, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter and Facebook.